Have you ever felt like someone came into your life, not to start something, but as if they had come back? Not as if it was a first meeting, but as if it was a predestined reunion. That look, that voice, that feeling, it was as if you had lived with them in another life, or many lives before. But why do we miss someone we have never met? Why does a fleeting moment make our heart flutter, as if it had just found something long lost? This is not just an emotion. This is a profound psychological phenomenon that Carl Jung once called ancient memories of the soul, the collective unconscious's way of speaking up, reminding us of something beyond time, logic, or reason. A connection that cannot be explained, only felt with all of our intuition and emotion. It is not love that begins, it is love that returns. And that's when the biggest question rings in my heart. Is it possible that true love isn't about finding someone new, but about meeting someone my soul has never forgotten? Is there an invisible bond, stronger than time, that silently connects two people, even though they may be on opposite sides of the world? Today's scenario isn't simply about love. It's a journey into the deepest part of the soul, where destiny isn't something you wait for, but something you gradually realize. We'll delve into the deepest concepts of Jungian psychoanalysis, from archetype, animus, to shadow and individuation. But first, let's stop at this moment when your heart suddenly aches just because of a glance in your memory, a laugh in your dream, or a name you don't know why you still remember. Because sometimes, true love is not the one who comes at the right time, but the one who never left, just on the way back. Have you ever felt that way? To understand why some loves are so powerful that they transcend reason, distance, and time, we need to look deeper into the inner world, what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious. This is not the place where individual memories reside, but rather the deepest layer of the human mind, where archetypes that have been shared by humanity for generations are stored. One archetype is particularly powerful: destined love. Jung believed that each of us carries within us an inner journey toward wholeness, called individuation. On this journey, we not only confront the darkness, but also seek out the other half of our soul that has been lost. An image he called the anima for men and animus for women. These images are not only representations of the masculine and feminine in each person, but also have a deep spiritual dimension. They represent the unfulfilled part of us that needs to be found through relationship with another person. When two people meet and feel as if they have known each other forever, it may be that their anima and animus are activated. It is no longer a feeling of ordinary love. It is a deep form of recognition that comes from within. This recognition often has no clear reason. You don't know why you are attracted to them. You don't know why they make you feel so emotional. But you know, on a deeper level, that something very real has been awakened within you. This is when love becomes symbolic. The other person is not just a person, but a living symbol, an image that your mind has created from something deep and primal. You don't just love them, you love what they awaken in you. And at this point, destined love is no longer a matter of two individuals, but of a spiritual journey. Two souls meet, not to satisfy each other, but to push each other to evolve. But make no mistake, Jung warned that when the archetype is awakened, we easily fall into a state of inner image possession. That is, we do not love the real person before our eyes, but love the shadow part of ourselves projected onto them. This is a double-edged sword. It both gives us a feeling of completeness and makes us live in illusion. And that is why destined love can be both the greatest gift and the most severe test the soul has to endure. This love can start like a thunderbolt, an unstoppable rise. Every emotion suddenly becomes deeper. Every thought becomes more weighty. Every moment together seems to slow down. But hidden beneath that sublimation is a series of unconscious movements taking place. That is when the process of individuation begins, and often it is this intense love that is the catalyst that ignites all that is buried. The soulmate, therefore, is not someone who comes to complete you. They come to mirror you, rather, the part of you that you have never clearly identified. You see yourself in them, the part that you have not dared to live, to face. And if you are brave enough to look straight, this love becomes a portal. Through it, you not only meet the other person, you meet yourself. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will continue to control your life, and you will call it fate." This is especially true in destined love. If you do not understand that much of the intense feeling you have for someone may be an expression of the unconscious, you will easily fall into a cycle of expectation, disappointment, and suffering. Fateful love in Jung's light is not a fairy tale. It is a journey of awakening. It is not the relationship you dream of, but the relationship that wakes you from your dream, sometimes with radiant happiness, sometimes with unspeakable pain, but always with truth. And for that reason, it deserves to be taken seriously, felt fully, and lived consciously. Because once you enter that depth, not only does love change, you will never be the same person again. The real journey has only just begun. In the next section, we will enter the strangest moment of soul connection, when you meet a complete stranger, but your heart whispers that you loved them a long time ago. There are encounters that leave you stunned, not by what happens on the outside, but by what arises on the inside. A stranger enters your life, but it feels as if you have just found something that has belonged to you for a long time. No words, no time, just a moment is enough to leave an indelible impression. It is not simple attraction. It is a kind of soul recognition. Carl Jung called this phenomenon the awakening of the collective unconscious, an ancient memory that goes beyond time and personal experience. When two people meet and immediately feel a deep connection, it is not a miracle, but the voice of the deepest layers of the soul, where the soul carries the codes of memories, symbols, and images accumulated over many lifetimes. That explains why we can feel so close to someone that it is absurd, as if we were once a part of each other. The phenomenon of recognition is often not loud. It happens in the smallest details, a look that makes you choke up, a gesture that makes you want to cry without knowing why, a sentence that you feel you heard somewhere in a dream. And more than the emotion, there is the feeling, I know this person, I used to belong to them. It is a feeling that cannot be explained by logic, but is extremely clear to intuition. According to Jung, it is in these moments that the archetypes of the anima and animus, the feminine part of a man and the masculine part of a woman, are most powerful. When you see someone and feel as if they are your missing image, you are most likely confronting your own inner spiritual symbol projected into the outside world. This is a common phenomenon in soul connections and is why you feel loved that person before you met them. Interestingly, this feeling doesn't always come with easy or smooth relationships. On the contrary, it often happens with people you don't expect, people whose lives are completely different from yours, people whose presence disrupts everything you thought was stable. And that's when you realize the soul doesn't care about convenience, it cares about truth. And the truth is, a very deep part of you is ready to awaken. The feeling of having met before doesn't necessarily stem from a past life in the mystical sense. In the light of Jungian psychoanalysis, it is a symbol of psychological recognition. You are re-encountering a buried part of yourself. The other person becomes a mirror that reflects back aspects of yourself that you have forgotten, longed for, or never had the chance to be true to. They awaken a part of your soul that has been dormant, and because of that, the experience is rarely pleasant. It's often accompanied by mixed emotions, excitement mixed with confusion, love mixed with fear, anticipation mixed with escape. You want to run toward the other person, but also want to run away from yourself, because the more real, the deeper the experience, the more out of control you feel. In culture, this phenomenon is called by many names: soulmate, twin flame, karmic connection. But the core of the phenomenon is not the name, but the experience of reflection. You don't just love the other person, you love the way they remind you of yourself, the purer, more honest, more complete version that you've forgotten. When you encounter such a connection, there's one very important thing to remember. It's not a sign that you've found your destiny and will spend the rest of your life with that person. No, it's a sign that you've just entered a process, a journey where love is no longer an emotion, but a mirror that illuminates the deepest parts of you, including the parts you've tried to forget, feared, and rejected. Jung emphasized that meeting someone who can shake up your entire unconscious system is not for you to cling to them, but for you to begin your journey back to yourself. That person doesn't come to complete you, they come to trigger your awakening. It's a sacred encounter, but it's not easy. And if you enter it with deep awareness, you won't just fall in love with someone, you'll begin to love yourself. In the next part, we'll enter the darkest part of this journey, where love is no longer a gentle light, but a mirror that reflects our own darkness. Because for love to truly exist, it must go through both the most beautiful and the most wounded parts of us. And it is there that love ceases to be romantic and becomes real. Fateful love is not just a path to light. It is also a torch that illuminates the darkest corners of the soul. And when that light shines, you will see clearly. Besides the magical connection, there is also the tearing, the conflict, the hurt, the fear, not because the love is not real, but because it is too real. Carl Jung called the darkness in each person the shadow, the collection of everything we have ever denied, ever hidden, ever dared not admit. It is the anger that has never been expressed, the fear of abandonment, the feeling of unworthiness, the control, the jealousy, the childhood trauma, the suffocated desires. When you love someone deeply, those parts no longer lie still, they rise up. Why is that? Because fateful love does not caress the ego, it touches the immature self. The other person, through every action, every reaction, every unconscious moment, becomes a mirror of you, not just the beautiful part, but also the forgotten part. And that is why loving someone truly can sometimes hurt so much. You start asking questions. Why did this person hurt me so much? Why do I feel insecure, jealous, afraid of losing them for no apparent reason? Why do I expect them to understand me perfectly, to love me properly, to stay when I am not ready to love myself? These questions are not the fault of love. They are signs that the darkness is wanting to be seen. Jung once said, "We do not become enlightened by imagining light, but by making darkness conscious." Love, especially spiritual love, does not come to you so that you can rest in the sunshine forever. It comes to you so that you dare to look into the darkness within yourself. From there you no longer love blindly, no longer hold on to someone for fear of losing, no longer impose expectations on the other person as if they have to heal all your wounds. The truth is, they can't, no one can, but they can do something more important, that is, wake you up. Let you start walking on the journey of healing yourself. Let you understand that love is not where we pour our desires and shortcomings into it, but where we accept the truth about ourselves and grow together. The stage of facing the darkness is the stage where many fateful relationships break up, not because love ends, but because both are not strong enough to face themselves. When the ideal image is broken, when the reflections are no longer pleasant, when both begin to see the naked truth about each other, that is when love changes from infatuation to awakening. And not everyone is brave enough to continue this path. But if you stay, if you both stay, then a new kind of love is born. Not the fragile love that needs to be fed by illusions, but a love that knows you are not perfect, and neither are they. But you choose to stay. Choose to look fear in the face. Choose to learn to love through the anger, the silences, the tearful nights, and the unanswered questions. True love does not exist in the absence of conflict, but in the presence of awareness. Awareness that my reactions come not just from you, but from my own past. Awareness that every bout of jealousy is a sign of an unhealed fear of abandonment. Awareness that the disappointment I sometimes feel comes not from the other person, but from my unconscious expectations of them. That awakening does not come overnight. It takes time, silence, and even stumbles. But the magic is, if you go through that darkness, love becomes unbreakable, not because it is perfect, but because it is true. Not because it no longer hurts, but because that pain now has meaning, has depth, has a function, the function of awakening and healing. Carl Jung once compared the journey to becoming yourself to an expedition into the dark forest of the soul, and the only companion who can walk with you there. No one else can illuminate your darkness more clearly than the person you love most. Because love means opening up. Opening up means being vulnerable, but it is in that vulnerability that we are real. So, if you are in love with someone who makes you face the sides of yourself you don't like, if they unintentionally expose your weaknesses, anger, insecurities, then maybe you are not ruining a relationship, you are at the starting point of truth. And this truth, if seen with courage, will not destroy love. It will mature it. In the next part, we will come to a stage that is no less important: separation. Because sometimes for love to go further, both must learn to separate, not to end it, but to become strong enough for a true reunion. There is a strange paradox in the deepest bonds. The more attached, the more loving, the more likely one is to separate. But this separation is not the end. In the light of Jungian psychoanalysis, it is an indispensable part of the soul journey. The separation phase, a necessary silence for both to return to themselves, to mature, and to reunite, if fate allows, at a deeper, more mature level. Separation is not always chosen. Sometimes it comes as a cut, a misunderstanding that cannot be resolved, a conflict that neither wants to give in, a silence so long that all words are silenced. Or sometimes the reason comes from outside, circumstances, distance, timing, or simply that both are not ready to move forward together. But either way, separation in soul bonds is never accidental. It carries a deeper meaning. Preparation. Carl Jung once said, No one can achieve wholeness without separating himself from the collective. This is also true in love. To become a complete being, we must learn to step away from the relationship that we once thought we could not live without. Not to leave that love, but to leave our dependence on it. When the soul enters the stage of separation, that is the moment when love is no longer a crutch, but becomes a silent mirror. And in that mirror we see ourselves, complete, no longer dissolved in the other person. The pain of separation is real, no one denies it. It tears apart illusions, extinguishes unfinished dreams, leaves a void that sometimes nothing can fill. But if you are quiet enough to listen, you will realize, in that void, there is a very clear call from within, the call of the self. The call to embark on a personal healing journey, where for the first time, love is no longer a refuge, but a place where inner strength is born. In this phase, many people feel disoriented. They look back at past moments and wonder, why did this happen? We were so deeply connected. But the right question is not, why did we lose each other? But what am I learning from this absence? It is in the absence of the other that new lessons begin to emerge. Am I relying on that person to avoid facing my fears? Am I holding them responsible for healing my childhood wounds? Am I mistaking love for fulfillment? The answer is not easy. It comes from sleepless nights, from inner monologues, from nameless crying spells. But once you dare to go through all those layers of emotion, you begin to realize separation is not loss, it is expansion. You are not losing love. You are being taught to love without dependence. You are learning to live without forgetting yourself. The separation of soul connections is often a necessary condition for releasing the initial illusions. When you are together, you can love the ideal image of the other person, love the feeling they bring, love the role they play in your life. But when they are no longer present, you are forced to see yourself. Without them to love, you begin to learn to love the other, the wounded part, the insecure part, the weak part that you once hoped they would heal for you. Jung called this the stage of separating from the shadow of the other into the light of your own self. And the strange thing is, in that separation, if love is real, it is not lost. It is quiet, but it is still alive. It is no longer a physical presence, but becomes a living memory, a silent energy that supports you as you grow. Not every separation leads to reunion, but every true separation leads to maturity. And if your soul and the other person's soul are still on the same plane of resonance, after both have become complete within themselves, then the reunion, if it happens, will no longer have the same form. It is no longer two people coming together to complete each other, but two complete beings, continuing the journey of awakening together. In the next part, we will come to the moment of miracle, the return, but not a return because of missing each other, but a return because of finding ourselves again. A love that is no longer fed by dreams, but by presence. No longer based on emotions, but on understanding. No longer we are one, but I am me, and I choose you, not because I need you to live, but because I want to live with you. There are reunions that are unannounced, unplanned, and without the noise of fate. They happen in a quiet afternoon, a glance caught in the crowd, a message after years of silence, or simply a feeling that rises in the heart. It's time. But this time, the meeting is no longer the same. Because when both have walked through their own darkness, have learned to stand alone, the reunion is no longer to fill, but to expand together. No longer to continue an old story, but to begin a new phase, deeper, more authentic. Jung once said, "When we are conscious enough, what once hurt us can become a source of healing." In the context of soul love, reunion does not happen because we still cling to old feelings, but because the soul has matured enough to realize the other person is not a destination, but a living mirror reflecting the process of awakening itself. Their presence once wounded you because you were not ready, but when you have both gone through the process of separation, facing, healing, integrating, a reunion can become the foundation for a love that you were never mature enough to live fully. The first thing you will notice when you meet again is that the feeling is still there, but it is no longer chaotic. It is calm, light, like water that has stopped roaring and now flows quietly deep. You no longer need the other person to feel complete, but their presence makes you feel yourself more clearly than ever. You no longer love to the point of losing yourself, but you begin to love from the wholeness within yourself. At this point, love is no longer a response to lack, but the resonance of two beings who have gradually penetrated themselves, no longer expecting each other to soothe the wound, to always understand, to never leave. Because now both understand that the separation itself is also part of the process of growing up. No more fear of separation, no more panic when distance appears. Instead, there is the trust that if our souls truly call each other, nothing can stop them. Reunion at the awakening level is a very different experience. It does not have the impulsiveness of love at first sight, nor does it carry the craving of filling the void. It is quiet but steady, because it is not based on need, but on choice. Not I cannot live without you, but I can live alone, but I choose to live with you because you awaken the deepest thing in me. It is in that space that a new love is born. Love is no longer a destination of desire, but a place of consciousness. There, you no longer try to change the other person to suit you. You see them as they are. You don't love an ideal version, but a person with all their flaws, truths, shadows, and lights, because you've learned to love yourself that way too. It may be strange to realize the conflicts that once tore you apart now no longer threaten your love, because you no longer give all the emotional power to the other person. You no longer react from unconsciousness, but respond from understanding. Reuniting in a conscious state is when you listen to the other person not to protect your ego, but to understand a part of your soul that you never knew existed. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to expand. Every difference becomes a lesson to move forward together. And if there is anything beautiful about this kind of love, it is this: the two no longer want to possess each other. Instead of holding on, they lift each other up. Instead of binding, they create space for each other to grow. Love becomes a sacred place where both are free to be themselves and still choose to stay. Not caught up in mindless games, not bound by roles or expectations, but two free souls walking side by side, like two flames shining side by side, not overwhelming, not disappearing, but together creating a greater light. This is when you understand reuniting is not a return to a cycle, but a step into a deeper level of the journey. Relationships are not just about love, but a means of spiritual evolution. There you are not just living a love story, you are living a symbol, the symbol of returning to the self, of love no longer being a fleeting emotion, but a sacred form linked to your own individuation. Carl Jung once said, "There is no awakening without pain." But when you have gone through pain, when you have let loneliness teach you what no one else can, the return of a destined soul will no longer have the same form. They are no longer the one who saved you. They are the one who sees you, and in that look, you recognize yourself. The final part of this journey is not a fairy tale style happiness, but a love that knows the fragility of human beings, accepts imperfection, and still chooses to accompany each other. Because true love after all, does not promise that we will never lose each other again. It only says, if one day we get lost again, we know how to find our way back. And perhaps that is the truest promise of souls born to find each other. After all the ups and downs, the emotional highs, the darkness, the separations and reunions, we realize something that seems contradictory, but is a fundamental truth. The love between two destined souls does not come to complete each other, but to bring them closer to themselves. That love is not a reward. It is a calling, not to be possessed, but to be transformed, not to go anywhere, but to become someone. Carl Jung said, "The ego wants comfort. The higher self, the self, wants growth." When two souls meet, it is not because life wants them to be happy immediately. It is because that meeting is a divine mechanism to accelerate the process of awakening, for them to face all that is forgotten in their consciousness and begin the journey to become their whole selves. And so love is no longer an emotion, but a symbolic tool. At its deepest level, fated love is a living manifestation of the archetype of eternal love in the collective unconscious. It has been told in fairy tales, myths, tragedies, and poems since time immemorial, from Orpheus and Eurydice to Romeo and Juliet, to the love affairs that have separated and reunited in the cultural subconscious of all civilizations. They are not just stories, they are reflections of something very real in every human soul, the desire to return to union. But that union does not happen until we are ready. There is no true love if we still love to be fulfilled, to be recognized, to escape ourselves. Fated souls often come when we think we are ready, but then that encounter makes us realize we have never known what true love is, and it is from that disillusionment that a new gate opens, the journey back to the self. When we look back, the most precious thing is not "we were together," but "I have changed because of you." You are not just a person who passed through my life. You are a living symbol of a part of my soul that I once forgot. And even though now each of us has gone our separate ways, or is still together, what cannot be denied is after meeting you, I am no longer the same person I was before. This love, therefore, does not need to be named. It does not need to be defined. It just needs to be lived, felt, and respected as something sacred. It does not promise to always be gentle, but it is always real, and that is the rarest thing in this world full of emotional illusions. Jung once affirmed that the reunion of two soul archetypes is not an external event, but an internal symbol. The fusion occurs within. That means whether we continue to be together or not. The most important thing is that you have become more complete, thanks to that connection. True love doesn't always keep the other person, but it always leaves an everlasting mark on the heart, not as a wound, but as a flame that once lit up the darkest parts of you. And then you realize the greatest return is not to someone, but to the center of your own being. When that happens, you no longer ask, "Are we reunited?" or "Does he still remember me?" You will ask, "What have I learned from that connection? Am I being true to myself? Am I loving without losing myself?" If the answer is yes, then that love, whether still there or far away, is still alive in you, still guiding you, like a silent energy, never disappearing. Because, as Jung once said, what belongs to the soul does not need to be held, nor can it be lost. And that is the final message of this journey. Love between two destined souls is not a destination. It is a path, a journey towards oneself, a journey that may begin with a touch, but is only truly complete when you touch your truest self. Because, after all, true love does not hold us back because of need, but because we have freely chosen to stay. And sometimes that choice, made in silence, in awareness, in maturity, is the highest form of love. Love, when it reaches its deepest level, does not need to say anything. It only needs a presence, and a heart that knows what is true will always find its way back.